cafe was buzzing with the usual morning energy. The smell of fresh coffee mixed with the soft aroma of pastries, creating a warmth that made people linger even if they were in a hurry. Among the customers, there was a man who stood out immediately. He was sharply dressed, his watch catching the sunlight as he moved, and there was a quiet air of authority about him. Everyone in the cafe could sense that he was not an ordinary visitor. He settled into a corner booth with a smug smile, casually scanning the room as if he owned it. Behind the counter, a young waitress moved gracefully between tables. She had been working there for a few years, and most customers knew her as polite and efficient. What they didn't know was that she carried a hidden passion within her, a love for music that she had nurtured quietly. She had learned to play the piano as a child but had not performed publicly for many years. Music was her secret escape, her private world. The cafe had an old piano tucked into a corner, slightly worn but still capable of producing beautiful sound. It was there more for decoration than use, though occasionally a customer would sit and play a few notes if the mood struck them. The waitress often found herself glancing at it when she was alone, imagining the melodies she could create, wishing for the courage to play in front of people. On this particular morning, the millionaire's eyes lingered on her as she moved about her work. He noticed the way her fingers sometimes twitched slightly, almost as if they were itching to touch the piano keys. He leaned back in his chair, a playful smirk forming on his lips. With a voice loud enough for her to hear, he said, "I wonder if anyone here can actually play that old piano, or if it's just for show." The comment was not cruel, but it had a teasing edge. She froze for a moment, feeling her heart skip a beat. Her mind raced. Should she ignore it, or should she respond? She wasn't used to being singled out like this, especially not by someone who carried himself with such confidence and expectation. Other customers began to glance over, curious about the interaction. The air seemed to thicken with anticipation. The waitress wiped her hands on her apron, trying to steady her racing thoughts. She had always doubted herself, worried that her talent might not be enough, worried about being judged. But something in his tone, that mix of challenge and curiosity, sparked a fire within her. She could either retreat into the safety of her routine or take a bold step and show the world a piece of her true self. She moved toward the piano, her steps measured but confident. Each footfall echoed slightly against the wooden floor, drawing the attention of those nearby. The millionaire watched her approach with an expression that suggested he expected little. He thought it might be amusing to see someone embarrassed by their own hesitation. Yet, there was a flicker of curiosity in his eyes, a hint that he might be surprised. As she reached the piano, she paused and placed her hands on the keys. The surface was cold beneath her fingertips, but the familiar feel brought a sense of comfort. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, letting memories of late-night practice sessions and secret performances flood her mind. She could hear the imaginary audience cheering in her mind, could feel the rhythm of her favorite melodies coursing through her veins. The cafe grew quieter as customers sensed that something was about to happen. Conversations dwindled to whispers, and the baristas paused mid-motion, watching intently. Even the millionaire leaned forward slightly, his smirk replaced by a more neutral expression. There was an electric tension in the air, a mix of curiosity and expectation. Everyone wondered what she might do. Then she began to play. The first notes were soft, tentative, almost shy, but they were perfectly in tune. Her fingers moved over the keys with grace and precision, each note carrying a gentle warmth that immediately drew the listeners in. It was as if the piano had been waiting for her all these years, and now it was responding to her touch in ways it had never done before. The music filled the cafe, weaving through the tables and across the room. Customers stopped mid-sip, mid-bite, simply to listen. The young waitress had forgotten everything else. The teasing comment, the expectant eyes, even the bustling activity of the cafe. There was only the music, flowing effortlessly from her fingertips. She felt a freedom she had never experienced, a connection to the world that went beyond words. The millionaire's expression changed slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. The smirk faded, replaced by genuine surprise. His eyes widened slightly as he realized the depth of her talent. He had expected a simple, perhaps awkward display, but what he was witnessing was the result of years of dedication and hidden passion. There was skill, emotion, and a maturity in her playing that went far beyond casual practice. Customers whispered among themselves, some smiling, some nodding in appreciation. A few discreetly recorded videos on their phones, knowing they were witnessing something remarkable. The atmosphere in the cafe shifted from casual morning chatter to a shared moment of wonder. The young waitress, lost in her music, felt a strange mix of exhilaration and vulnerability. She was exposing a part of herself she had kept hidden, and yet the reaction was overwhelmingly positive. As she played, her confidence grew. The notes became bolder, more expressive, and the melodies flowed naturally, carrying both joy and depth. The initial hesitation was gone, replaced by a quiet assurance that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Each key she pressed seemed to echo the beating of her heart, resonating with the attentive audience. When the final note lingered and faded, the cafe erupted in applause. The sound was immediate, heartfelt, and appreciative. The young waitress straightened, a mixture of relief and pride washing over her. She had faced the challenge, the teasing remark, and emerged victorious, not just in skill but in courage. The millionaire leaned back in his chair, visibly impressed. He clapped slowly, deliberately, making sure she noticed. "I didn't expect that," he said, his voice carrying both admiration and humility. "You have a remarkable gift." The young waitress smiled softly, her cheeks flushing slightly. She felt a new sense of recognition, not just from him but from everyone present. Her talent was no longer hidden, and for the first time in a long time, she felt seen. The teasing comment that had initially caused hesitation had become a catalyst for something extraordinary. The cafe slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but the mood had shifted. Conversations now carried excitement, laughter, and admiration. Customers shared glances, knowing they had witnessed a rare moment of brilliance. The piano, once just a piece of furniture in the corner, had become a symbol of hidden potential and the power of courage. The young waitress returned to her duties, a subtle glow in her eyes. She moved between tables with renewed energy, her interactions carrying a quiet confidence. The memory of the performance lingered in her mind, a reminder that talent and courage, when combined, could transform even the most ordinary moment into something unforgettable. She knew that the day had changed her, and perhaps even the people around her, in ways that would stay with them long after the cafe emptied. The millionaire finished his coffee, still occasionally glancing at the piano, and perhaps pondering the lesson he had learned. Never underestimate someone based on appearances, and sometimes, a small challenge can reveal extraordinary hidden talent. As he left, there was a newfound respect in his steps, a silent acknowledgement that life could surprise even the most confident of observers. And for the young waitress, the day had proven that stepping forward, even in the face of doubt, could unlock doors she never imagined. Her love for music, once private and hidden, had finally found its audience, and she felt a quiet promise that this was only the beginning of something far greater than a single performance. The applause still echoed softly in the cafe as the young waitress slowly withdrew her hands from the piano keys. She took a deep breath, feeling her pulse racing, a mix of excitement and relief washing over her. She had done it. She had played in front of a room full of strangers, including the wealthy man who had challenged her, and she had not only survived the moment but had also amazed them. She felt a warmth in her chest, a quiet pride that made her stand a little taller as she turned back to her work. The millionaire was watching her intently, leaning slightly forward in his seat. There was something in his gaze that was different from before. He no longer looked like someone ready to mock. Now he seemed genuinely curious. He raised an eyebrow and said, "You didn't just play, you told a story with every note. How long have you been playing like that?" His tone was still teasing, but the admiration behind it was unmistakable. She smiled softly, feeling a little shy under the attention. "Since I was a child," she admitted quietly, "but I haven't performed for anyone in years." She felt her cheeks warm. The words came out before she could stop them, a truth she had kept to herself for so long. The room seemed to notice her vulnerability and talent at the same time, making the moment feel even more special. Other customers approached her, some curious, some congratulatory. They asked questions about her experience and praised her skill. A few even suggested that she should consider performing somewhere professionally. The young waitress listened politely, her heart still racing, but she could not help but feel a little overwhelmed. This was not just a recognition of her ability. It was a validation she had never received before. It was like someone had pulled back a curtain and allowed her secret world of music to shine in the open. The millionaire stood up from his chair and approached the piano. He didn't sit down immediately. Instead, he stood beside her, examining the keys as if seeing them for the first time. "I've heard many musicians in my life," he said slowly, "but there's something rare about the way you play. It's not just skill. It's emotion, presence. You make the piano feel alive." He paused, then smiled, genuinely, without the usual arrogance he carried. "Most people never discover a talent like yours, or they're too afraid to share it. You're different." The young waitress felt a mixture of pride and nervousness at his words. She had never thought of herself as extraordinary. Music had always been personal, a refuge where she could escape from stress and the mundane. Yet here was someone whose opinion mattered in a different way, someone who could open doors she hadn't dared to imagine. She took a moment to look around the cafe. The customers were still lingering, some quietly discussing the performance, others taking a few pictures discreetly on their phones. The energy in the room had shifted. What had started as a casual morning now felt like a turning point, not only for her but for everyone present. She realized that her music had connected with people in a way she had never experienced. It was as if the piano had become a bridge between her inner world and the outside, allowing strangers to understand a piece of who she was. The millionaire spoke again, lowering his voice slightly so only she could hear. "I have to ask, would you consider performing for a larger audience? Not just here, but in places where people could truly appreciate your talent." His words were careful, not demanding, but they carried an opportunity that was difficult to ignore. The thought of performing beyond the cafe was both thrilling and terrifying. She had always dreamed of sharing her music, but fear and self-doubt had held her back. Now, with someone encouraging her, the possibility felt real. She hesitated, weighing the decision carefully. Her mind flashed back to all the moments she had practiced alone, the times she had imagined applause, and the times she had convinced herself that no one would care. Could she take this next step? Could she trust that her talent was enough for the wider world? She nodded slowly, feeling a determination she had not known she possessed. "I would like to," she said softly, almost to herself. The millionaire smiled, clearly pleased with her response. "Good," he said, "because talent like yours deserves more than a quiet corner in a cafe. People need to hear it, to feel it, and I want to help you do that." There was no fanfare, no grand promises, just a quiet offer that carried weight. She could feel the sincerity behind his words, and it made her both anxious and excited. The baristas returned to their tasks, and the cafe slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but the young waitress could feel a new sense of purpose. She continued serving tables, but there was a lightness in her step and a quiet confidence in her movements. Every interaction now carried a subtle pride. Even when she poured coffee or refilled water, she felt the recent performance lingering in the air, a reminder of what she was capable of. Throughout the morning, small conversations kept circling back to the piano. Customers shared their impressions, some talking about the emotion in her playing, others about the technical skill. The young waitress listened with humility, her thoughts returning often to the millionaire's challenge and the unexpected path it had created. It had started with a simple tease, a playful provocation, and it had led to a moment of revelation that changed the way she viewed herself. She began to imagine the possibilities beyond the cafe. Small recitals, local performances, even recording a few pieces to share with a wider audience. The idea of performing in front of more people no longer seemed impossible. It seemed like a new adventure waiting to begin. Her dreams, which had been quiet and personal, now felt reachable. She felt a spark of courage, a willingness to embrace the unknown, knowing that the first step had already been taken. Meanwhile, the millionaire observed quietly from his seat, occasionally nodding to himself as if confirming a personal realization. He had expected entertainment, perhaps a momentary amusement, but what he had witnessed was something far more profound. He saw the power of talent combined with courage, and he recognized the rare courage it took to step forward, especially under the gaze of others. His own perspective had shifted. He had come to understand that opportunity sometimes needed a gentle push, and that hidden potential could surprise even the most confident observers. By mid-morning, the cafe had settled into a quieter hum. The young waitress returned to her routine, carrying herself with a newfound poise. Each customer she served now seemed to sense a subtle change in her, an invisible aura of confidence and self-respect. Even the regulars noticed it, whispering to one another about the transformation they had witnessed in someone they had seen every day. She thought about the piano often, wondering when she might have another chance to play. The keys seemed to call to her, promising both comfort and excitement. The memory of the music she had created, and the applause that followed, lingered in her mind like a soft melody she could not forget. It reminded her that talent, when shared, could touch the hearts of many, and that courage could turn an ordinary day into a defining moment. As the morning wore on, she felt a quiet anticipation building. She knew the challenge from the millionaire had been more than a simple tease. It had been a nudge toward something she had been ready for, even if she hadn't known it. The realization that she had faced her fear and emerged with her gift recognized filled her with a deep sense of satisfaction. It was a moment she would carry with her, not just for the applause, but for the affirmation that she had the ability to step into the world as she truly was. By lunchtime, the cafe was busy again, but the young waitress moved through the crowd with a calm assurance. Every time she glanced at the piano, she felt a quiet thrill, imagining the melodies yet to come. The millionaire had left, but his words lingered, a reminder that opportunity often arrived in unexpected forms, and that talent, when acknowledged, could open doors she had never dreamed of. The day continued, each moment building on the last, and the young waitress knew that her life had shifted in a subtle but profound way. The teasing comment that had sparked the morning had grown into a turning point, a moment that revealed her hidden potential and set her on a path towards something greater. And as she moved through her work, serving coffee and greeting customers, she carried with her a quiet, glowing confidence, a certainty that her music was not just her secret, but a gift the world deserved to hear. The next day, the cafe was quiet in the morning hours, a calm before the busy crowd arrived. The young waitress felt a sense of anticipation as she tied her apron and prepared the tables. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the previous day, to the way the piano had come alive under her fingers and the way people had reacted. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness, as she wondered if today might bring another chance to play, or perhaps something even bigger. As she moved between tables, she noticed the old piano in the corner, almost as if it were waiting for her. She walked past it several times, her fingers brushing the surface lightly, and she felt a familiar stir in her chest. The piano had been her companion for so many years, and now it seemed to call her again, urging her to continue the journey she had begun. She paused for a moment, closed her eyes, and allowed herself to imagine the melodies that could flow once more. Customers began arriving, chatting quietly, and the cafe started to fill with the aroma of fresh coffee and baked goods. Among the new visitors was a small group of people who had clearly heard about the previous day's performance. They whispered excitedly as they entered, casting glances at the piano, and one of them asked if the young waitress would play again. She smiled politely, her heart fluttering at the thought, and nodded softly. She had not expected this level of attention so soon, and it made her both nervous and motivated. The atmosphere in the cafe was different now. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, a quiet excitement that seemed to hum through the room. People were eager to see her perform, and she felt the weight of their expectations, not as pressure, but as encouragement. She realized that her music could connect with people in ways words could not. Each note she played had the power to evoke emotion, to bring joy, calm, or reflection. The thought was both humbling and empowering. She approached the piano slowly, letting her fingers hover above the keys. Her mind replayed the music from yesterday, and she felt a rush of inspiration. She began with a simple melody, soft and deliberate, allowing the sound to fill the room gradually. Customers turned their attention toward her, their conversations fading into quiet appreciation. She felt a strange sense of control and freedom as the music flowed naturally, guiding her hands and heart. The young waitress played for several minutes, her melodies becoming more expressive with each passing moment. She allowed herself to experiment, blending gentle harmonies with lively rhythms. She noticed the reactions of the listeners, some swaying slightly to the music, others closing their eyes to savor each note. Even the regular baristas paused for a moment, caught up in the beauty of the performance. It was a shared experience, a connection between her and everyone present, and she felt a deep satisfaction in creating that bond. The piano had once been her private world, a place where she could retreat from the noise of daily life. Now it had become a bridge to others, a way to share her passion and touch hearts. She realized that performing in front of people was not as frightening as she had imagined. Instead, it was exhilarating, giving her a sense of purpose she had never known. Each note carried not just sound, but emotion, intention, and a piece of herself. After the performance, she returned to her duties, but the energy in the cafe had shifted. Customers approached her, offering compliments and words of encouragement. Some asked if she would consider playing at other events or locations, and she listened, intrigued and slightly overwhelmed. She had always dreamed of sharing her music, but the thought of stepping outside the cafe had seemed distant and unrealistic. Now, with the support of those around her, it felt possible. The young waitress thought about the millionaire, who had sparked this chain of events with a simple challenge. His initial taunt had been unexpected, even intimidating, but it had opened the door to something far greater. She realized that sometimes opportunities came in unusual forms, disguised as challenges or doubts. The key was to recognize them and have the courage to take the first step, even when fear or hesitation tried to hold her back. Throughout the day, she found herself reflecting on her journey. She remembered the countless hours she had spent practicing alone, the moments of doubt when she questioned her ability, and the secret joy she had found in music. Those private experiences had prepared her for this moment, and she understood that every small effort had contributed to the realization of her talent. It was a reminder that dedication, patience, and passion could transform potential into something tangible and inspiring. As the day progressed, the cafe grew busier, but she managed to maintain a sense of calm and focus. The piano remained in the corner, a constant reminder of her gift and the possibilities it held. Occasionally, she glanced at it, imagining the melodies she could create if given the chance. The thought of performing beyond the cafe was no longer daunting. It was exciting, a new chapter waiting to be written. The young waitress began to plan for the future. She considered reaching out to local music groups, small venues, or even community events where she could perform. The idea of connecting with a broader audience thrilled her, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Music had always been a personal journey, but now it had the potential to become a shared experience, bringing joy and inspiration to others. Even as she continued her regular duties, her mind was alive with creative ideas. She thought about new compositions, ways to express different emotions through music, and how to develop her skills further. The experience had awakened a drive within her, a determination to explore her full potential. Each customer interaction, each glance at the piano, reinforced the understanding that her talent was not just a personal treasure, but a gift meant to be shared. By evening, the cafe had quieted down again. The young waitress took a moment to sit at the piano, her fingers lightly touching the keys. She began to play softly, a gentle melody that reflected the emotions of the day. It was not a performance for anyone else, but a personal moment of reflection and gratitude. The music flowed effortlessly, carrying her thoughts, dreams, and newfound confidence. The sound of the piano filled the empty cafe, a reminder of the power of courage and the importance of embracing opportunities. She realized that her journey was only beginning. The performance had been more than a display of skill. It had been a turning point, a moment that revealed the strength and potential within her. She felt a quiet determination to continue, to explore the possibilities, and to share her gift with the world. As she played, she imagined the reactions of new audiences, the smiles, the applause, and the connection she could create through music. The thought energized her, reinforcing the idea that taking risks and stepping into the unknown could lead to extraordinary experiences. She understood that every note she played was not just sound, but a bridge to others, a way to communicate without words, and a way to leave a lasting impression. The young waitress finished her melody and sat back, feeling a sense of fulfillment and peace. She had faced the challenge, embraced her talent, and discovered the power of sharing her passion. The experience had changed her perspective, giving her confidence, purpose, and a renewed sense of possibility. She knew that the path ahead would have its challenges, but she was ready to face them with courage and determination. As she closed the piano cover and returned to her duties, she carried with her a quiet assurance. The cafe was not just a place of work anymore. It was a stepping stone, a place where her talent had been recognized and nurtured. The piano had become a symbol of her journey, a reminder that even hidden talents could shine brightly when given the opportunity and courage to be revealed. By the end of the day, the young waitress felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had discovered something profound about herself and her abilities, and she was eager to continue exploring the possibilities. Music had always been her refuge, but now it had become a source of strength, inspiration, and connection. She realized that the challenge, the performance, and the recognition were all part of a journey that was just beginning, and she was ready to embrace every step of it with passion and determination. The following morning, the cafe seemed brighter somehow. There was a buzz in the air, a mix of curiosity and anticipation. News of the young waitress's performance had traveled through whispers, social media posts, and word of mouth. People came not just for coffee and pastries, but to witness the talent that had already surprised so many. The waitress arrived early, tying her apron with a calm determination. She felt the weight of expectation but also the quiet excitement that came from knowing she had something special to share. She moved among the tables, serving regulars and newcomers alike. Each glance toward the piano reminded her that today could bring something new. She had grown comfortable with the attention, and her heart no longer raced with fear. Instead, it beat with anticipation and pride. The piano was no longer just an object in the corner. It was a portal to a world she had only glimpsed before, a way to connect with people through music. As the morning crowd settled, she noticed the millionaire entering the cafe. He walked with his usual confident demeanor, but there was a noticeable difference in his expression. He smiled warmly, genuinely impressed by the reaction of the patrons and the buzz that surrounded the young waitress. He approached her table and said, "Good morning. I see the news is spreading quickly. People are talking about you everywhere. You've inspired more than you realize." His tone carried admiration, and she felt a subtle warmth spread through her. The young waitress nodded, trying to mask the nervous flutter in her chest. "Thank you," she said softly. "It's been overwhelming, but exciting too." He chuckled and leaned closer. "It should be. Talent like yours doesn't go unnoticed for long. You have a gift and people are drawn to it. Today, I want to see how far you can take it." He gestured toward the piano, and she understood what he meant. It was a silent challenge, an invitation to step further into her potential. Taking a deep breath, she walked to the piano and sat down. Her fingers hovered above the keys for a moment, sensing the energy of the room and the anticipation of the audience. The first notes she played were soft, deliberate, like the calm before a storm. Gradually, her music grew more expressive, more confident. Every note carried her emotion, her story, and her connection to the people around her. The customers fell silent, captivated by the melodies that filled the cafe. Some closed their eyes to immerse themselves fully, while others watched her hands move with awe. The young waitress felt a powerful sense of unity. Her music had created a shared experience that transcended words. She realized that her playing was no longer just for herself. It was a gift she could offer to anyone willing to listen. As she continued, the millionaire watched intently. His earlier amusement had transformed into respect and genuine admiration. He could see the depth of her talent, the years of practice hidden behind her quiet demeanor. It was more than skill. It was artistry, and it had the power to move hearts. He leaned back, letting the music wash over him, realizing that his playful taunt had sparked something extraordinary. The performance lasted longer than anyone expected. The young waitress's fingers danced across the keys with precision and grace, shifting effortlessly between soft, tender passages and lively, energetic rhythms. Each transition was seamless, a reflection of her understanding of the music and her ability to convey feeling. The cafe was filled with an almost tangible emotion, and the patrons were swept up in the experience, forgetting their daily routines and responsibilities. When the last note faded, there was a moment of silence, as if everyone was savoring the echo. Then the cafe erupted in applause. The sound was overwhelming, heartfelt, and genuine. People stood from their seats, clapping, cheering, and some even whistling in appreciation. The young waitress felt a rush of joy and relief. Her performance had touched people, and she could see it in their faces. The awe, the admiration, and the delight. The millionaire was among the first to approach her. He extended his hand, a broad smile on his face. "That was remarkable," he said sincerely. "You've taken something ordinary and turned it into something unforgettable. People will remember this day because of you." She accepted his handshake, feeling a deep sense of validation. His words were not empty praise. They were acknowledgement of her skill and courage. Other customers approached as well, offering compliments, asking questions about her experience, and expressing curiosity about future performances. The young waitress answered with humility, grateful for the recognition but also aware of the responsibility that came with it. She realized that her music had created opportunities, connections, and a reputation that could extend far beyond the cafe. It was both exhilarating and humbling. Throughout the day, the impact of her talent continued to unfold. Customers shared stories of how the music had affected them, how it had brought back memories, inspired hope, or simply provided a moment of beauty in an ordinary day. She listened quietly, feeling the profound effect her gift could have on others. It was a realization that her talent was not just personal. It was transformative, capable of influencing lives in subtle but meaningful ways. The young waitress also began to consider the possibilities beyond the cafe. She thought about local music events, small concerts, or private gatherings where she could perform. Each idea seemed less intimidating and more attainable, fueled by the positive response she had received. The support of the patrons and the encouragement of the millionaire gave her confidence that she could take the next step. The challenge that had started as a simple tease had now blossomed into a path filled with potential and promise. As the day came to a close, the cafe quieted, and the young waitress reflected on the events. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for the chance to share her music, for the recognition she had received, and for the encouragement to continue exploring her potential. The piano, once a silent companion, had become a conduit for connection, expression, and inspiration. She understood that her journey was just beginning, and that each performance could open new doors. The millionaire returned to his seat before leaving, watching the young waitress with a sense of pride. He had witnessed the transformative power of a small challenge, and he understood that talent often needed a gentle push to reveal itself. He had expected amusement or entertainment but had found something far more meaningful, a glimpse into a person's true potential. He knew that the waitress had the ability to inspire others, and he was eager to see where her talent would take her. The young waitress closed the cafe at the end of the day, her thoughts filled with melodies and possibilities. She played a few soft notes on the piano alone, savoring the sound and the freedom it provided. It was a moment of reflection, a quiet acknowledgement of how far she had come and how much further she could go. The applause, the recognition, and the encouragement had ignited something within her, a determination to embrace her gift and share it with the world. As she cleaned the tables and prepared to leave, she felt a sense of accomplishment and purpose. The events of the day had shown her that her talent was not something to hide, but something to nurture and present to others. She understood that music could bridge gaps, touch hearts, and create lasting memories. It was a responsibility she accepted willingly, with gratitude and enthusiasm. The cafe lights dimmed, and the young waitress stepped outside into the evening air. She looked back at the building, at the piano in the corner, and at the space where her journey had begun. She smiled, knowing that this was not the end, but a new beginning. Her music had already impacted lives, and she was ready to explore its full potential. With courage, determination, and passion, she knew that the future held endless possibilities, and she was eager to embrace each one. The young waitress woke up early, her mind already buzzing with thoughts of the piano and the possibilities it held. The events of the past days had transformed her life in ways she had never imagined. What had begun as a casual morning, a playful taunt from a millionaire, had turned into a journey of recognition, confidence, and opportunity. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness, knowing that today could bring even more changes. Arriving at the cafe, she was greeted by a crowd that had clearly heard of her talent. Some were regular customers, while others were newcomers drawn by stories and social media mentions. The atmosphere was electric, charged with anticipation. She moved between tables, greeting people with a calm assurance she hadn't felt before. Each glance at the piano reminded her of the performance that had sparked all this attention and the potential for more. She approached the piano, feeling the familiar smooth keys beneath her fingers. She let her hands hover for a moment, listening to the quiet hum of the cafe and the gentle murmurs of the patrons. When she began to play, the notes were soft, deliberate, and filled with emotion. The melodies seemed to float through the room, capturing the attention of everyone present. People stopped their conversations to listen, drawn into the music as if it were telling a story only they could understand. As she played, she felt a growing sense of connection with her audience. Every note was an invitation, a bridge between her inner world and the hearts of those listening. She realized that her music had the power to touch people in ways words could not. Faces softened, smiles appeared, and a quiet awe settled over the cafe. It was a moment of shared experience, a reminder that beauty and emotion could transform ordinary spaces into places of wonder. The millionaire, who had been observing from his usual corner, leaned forward with genuine admiration. His initial amusement had long disappeared, replaced by respect and appreciation for her talent. He could see the years of dedication behind each note, the passion that had been nurtured quietly until it could no longer be contained. He understood that a small challenge, a teasing remark, had revealed not just skill, but a remarkable spirit willing to embrace opportunity and shine. When the performance ended, the applause was overwhelming. Customers clapped, cheered, and some even rose to their feet. The young waitress felt a wave of relief and pride. She had shared a piece of herself, and the response was more than she had hoped for. The recognition was not just for her ability to play the piano, but for the courage to step forward, to reveal a hidden part of herself to the world. The millionaire approached her, a broad smile on his face. "That was incredible," he said sincerely. "You've taken something ordinary and turned it into something unforgettable. People are talking, and your talent is inspiring others. You should consider performing beyond this cafe. You have the ability to reach more people, to share your gift with the world." His words were not commands, but gentle encouragement, and they carried a weight that made her think deeply about the possibilities. She nodded slowly, feeling a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. Performing outside the cafe had always been a dream, but it had also been intimidating. Now, with encouragement and validation, it felt like an achievable step. The thought of sharing her music with a wider audience sparked a thrill she could not ignore. She realized that her talent was not just a personal treasure. It was something that could inspire, uplift, and connect with others. Throughout the day, she continued to serve customers, but her mind kept returning to the piano and the opportunities ahead. People approached her with questions about her background, her training, and her plans for the future. Each conversation reinforced the understanding that her music had the power to create impact. She listened, shared her story, and felt a growing confidence in her ability to take the next step. The cafe staff noticed the change as well. Her movements were more assured, her interactions warmer, and there was a glow of self-assurance that had not been there before. The piano, once just a piece of furniture, had become a symbol of possibility, a reminder that courage combined with talent could lead to extraordinary moments. The young waitress felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that she had embraced the opportunity when it presented itself and had grown stronger as a result. As evening approached, the cafe began to quiet down. The young waitress took a moment to sit at the piano alone, letting her fingers move gently over the keys. She played softly, reflecting on the journey so far and the path that lay ahead. The music carried her thoughts and emotions, a personal conversation that reminded her of how far she had come. She thought of the initial challenge, the performance, the recognition, and the encouragement, and felt a deep sense of gratitude for each step. Her mind turned to the future. She imagined performing at local events, small concerts, or private gatherings. She considered recording her music to share with a broader audience. Each idea felt less daunting and more exciting, fueled by the positive responses she had received and the encouragement of the millionaire. The realization that her talent could create opportunities and inspire others gave her a renewed sense of purpose. She understood that every performance, no matter how small, was a chance to connect and make a difference. The young waitress also reflected on the lessons she had learned. She understood that opportunity often comes in unexpected forms, disguised as challenges, doubts, or playful remarks. The key was to recognize them and act with courage. Her talent had been hidden for years, but now it had found its audience. She realized that growth often requires stepping into the unknown, taking risks, and trusting in oneself. As she played the final notes for the evening, she felt a sense of completion and readiness. The cafe was quiet, the customers had left, and the piano sat in the corner, ready for the next performance. She stood, feeling a renewed determination and confidence. Her journey had started with a simple taunt, but it had led to recognition, opportunity, and the promise of more. She knew that her talent could reach far beyond the cafe, and she was ready to embrace whatever came next. Closing the cafe for the night, she took one last look at the piano. It had been her companion, her refuge, and now it was also a gateway to the future. She smiled, knowing that she had the courage, skill, and determination to explore all the possibilities. The applause, recognition, and encouragement had transformed not just her day, but her perspective and her confidence. Stepping outside into the cool evening air, she felt a lightness in her heart. The events of the past days had taught her that hidden talent, when nurtured and shared, could create profound impact. The support of others, the recognition of her abilities, and the courage to embrace opportunity had opened a new chapter in her life. She understood that her music was not just a personal joy but a gift to be shared, and she was eager to continue her journey. The young waitress knew that her life had changed forever. She had discovered the power of courage, the value of embracing opportunity, and the joy of sharing her passion. Each step she had taken had built on the last, creating a path filled with promise, inspiration, and connection. She felt ready to take her music beyond the cafe, to touch more lives, and to continue growing as both a performer and a person. As she walked home, she carried with her a quiet confidence and a deep sense of fulfillment. The piano, the performances, and the encouragement had all contributed to a transformation that would stay with her for the rest of her life. She knew that challenges would continue to arise, but she was no longer afraid. She had the courage, skill, and determination to face whatever came next, and she was excited to see where her journey would take her. The young waitress realized that her story was not just about music. It was about courage, growth, and the willingness to embrace opportunity when it appears. The millionaire's initial challenge had set the stage, but it was her talent, dedication, and bravery that had created the remarkable outcome. She understood that her journey was just beginning, and the future held endless possibilities for her to explore, share, and inspire. With every note she played, she was shaping not just her own life, but the lives of those who listened and believed in her gift.